What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video, and today we are going to be taking a look at a couple of in-game events that are going to be ending in the next 48 hours, as well as talking about guilds and why they are important in 2021 more than ever. So before we jump into all that, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Helps me out a ton as a new YouTuber. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these events that are going to be ending here in the next 48 hours. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is obviously going to be the different Valentine's events that have been going on. Those are about to end. As you'll see here, you have your Score Dungeon, as well as your Operation Valentine Dungeon and your Dark Chocolate Mukai Dungeon, all ending here in the next 24 to 36 hours. So basically you have until reset tomorrow night to get through these and finish grinding on these events. Now we'll kind of go ahead and briefly take a look at a few things that you'll want to make sure that you do to get the most out of these before they go away. But starting out here, we'll talk about the Score Dungeon. So basically, when you take a look here, you are going to have about a day and 14 hours, so give or take several hours there from the time this video goes live. As you'll see here, I have completed the 100,000 points needed to get the FES voucher, which we are going to go ahead and redeem here once we're done. But these are some pretty good items that you get for this. I do definitely recommend that you spend some time either today or overnight grinding this out. You know, like I've said in the past, if you just want to go ahead and use some AP pots and then use 2,500 AP to kind of set it at 99 overnight to get through this, that is what I would recommend. That's how I did it. But as far as your exchange shop here, this has about 8 days, I believe. We'll take a look here, but I believe this has about 8 days left on it in order to redeem these things. So yeah, 8 days. You have plenty of time to redeem your Valentine coins for this if you have yet to do so. And in here there are some pretty decent items. I would make sure to get your hammers daily as well as your capsules, which I do obviously, as you can tell here. And then if you want to take advantage of the gold memory selection boxes or your stone imprint stone mystery boxes, you can do that as well. You'll have plenty of time after this ends to redeem those, as I said. So that part, not necessarily as much of a pinch, but when it comes to actually grinding those coins, you do not have very much longer. Like I said, you're going to have about less than a day and 10 hours or so from the time this video goes live in order to do this. Now, that is pretty much going to be the bulk of what I wanted to talk about as far as the actual events going on. Just make sure you do those. As we've talked about, this Valentine event, even though it wasn't giving anything too crazy, was still pretty nice overall, and I would take advantage of those items if you can. The other thing that's getting ready to end here is going to be the rate up for these option and finisher cards for Orochi Leona and Orochi Iori respectively. So if you're wanting to get these on the rate up and you have yet to do so, I highly recommend at least trying, if you have tokens and you don't want to use rubies, for the Leona option card, which is really the big seller here. This is definitely the card I would be going for if I were you guys. We've talked about that in a previous video. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, but if you have yet to do so, make sure that you go in and try and get this while it's on rate up. At this point, it's one of the best cooldown reduction cards in the game, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is needing the extra help with their cards. From there, it's looking like we'll probably be able to then put the Mian card for her SP finisher into that final slot, which is going to be nice, but yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go in on that or not at this point, even though, as you guys saw yesterday, I do have her now from those very clutch tickets that I used. Now, the other thing I want to talk about real briefly here, this is something that I'm sure if you've invested into, you've already finished it up, but if for whatever reason you spent money on either of these passes and have not finished it, or you have not finished the free normal reward one, make sure you do so, especially if you spent money on this. I don't want you to be out a bunch of money and have wasted it. I have a hard time believing anybody would be that complacent with things, but hey, you know, figured I would at least throw that in there. So let's go ahead, with all that being said, as we had talked about, use our FES redemption voucher here. Hopefully we get something good. You know, at this point, any memory is going to be nice, and we're guaranteed one here. So it doesn't really matter what it is, but you know, it would be nice if it was something we could actually use. I'm not expecting a clutch Mian memory or anything like that after the amazing luck we had yesterday with those pulls, which if you guys did not watch that video, spoiler alert, but we do have Mian, so pretty cool. I would go back and watch that if you guys haven't already done so, if not just to hear my my utter complete shock reaction to that. But let's go ahead and use this here. Hopefully we get something good, and then we'll move on to kind of the main topic of the video. Come on, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Be something half decent. Oh, no. Why? Crap. Well, that was the opposite of good. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to move on. Let's talk about today's main topic. Today's main topic is going to be guilds and why they're important now more than ever. So for those of you who are new to the game, intermediates, or even the veterans who are not in a guild, which I've noticed there's a lot of people that for whatever reason have never even looked at the guild thing, which I totally get from the past if you hadn't done it, but nowadays very important. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. Going to give an overview. So the biggest reasons why you want to be in a guild, right? We're going to start from the top. Start from the simplest things and then move on. So the biggest thing is going to be getting your guild buffs. Now, your guild buffs are buffs that your guild leader or the co-leader are going to manually activate every 12 hours. They are on a 12-hour cooldown, as you'll see here. Mine is currently at 6 hours. But basically, you are going to get buffs to your individual stats on your account for all the in-game content outside of, obviously, your championships and the like. Now, by no means are these enormous buffs, as you can see there, but it's still nice to have them. And like I said, these are going to be things that if you are a co-leader or a guild leader, you want to make sure that you are keeping these active for your guild members every single day, because if you want to keep members, you need to keep this going. You can check on yours, that little fireball up there by your AP, that will tell you whether or not your guild buffs are active. So that's a good way to tell. Now, in the exchange shop here, you're going to see these are the different items you can get for the currency that you will get from doing different things in the guild, such as some of the things under the event tab, which we'll briefly take a look at, checking in, so on and so forth. And one of the biggest things that you want to do, because this did recently get buffed, there isn't a whole lot here that I recommend to a lot of people because some of it's overpriced and really not worth it. But then again, you can use your guild coins on anything at this point. I mean, really, this is what you get to choose from. So, you know, pick your poison. I always get the capsules, but your mileage may vary. But yeah, so when it comes to that, really the biggest thing for everybody to make sure that they do every single day is the bare minimum at least. And every guild's going to be different, right? So every guild's going to have their own requirements in order for you to stay in your guild. For instance, in ours, we would just want you to check in and greet everybody. Do the bare minimum because we are more of a casual guild, although we've started to ramp it up quite a bit with the guild raids stuff, which we'll talk about. But over where you'll see today's guest count, and it says 10 out of 10 and complete below the names that I have greeted, make sure you do those every day. It's free to do, it's easy to do it real quick, get it out of the way. There is a small mission for it in the event tab, but make sure that you do those things, and make sure that you check in every day so that you can keep your guild's checked in number high. You want to make sure you do that. But when it comes to Guild Raid, let's talk about that real quick. So Guild Raid, basically, if you are participating yourself, you will get a box depending on how many points you scored in that specific difficulty based on how many keys you used. You're going to get 4 total keys a day if you're staying on top of things, but it caps at 2, meaning once your counter hits 0 and you have 2 keys, you have to make sure that you use one, otherwise your counter will not continue. You can't have 3 keys at a time or 4 keys at a time. You can only have 2 at a time. So make sure you're on top of it if you can. We talked about yesterday how this is a kind of flawed system in my opinion. It's kind of annoying to have to babysit this, but this is an important and arguably the most important part of being in a guild, because you want to make sure that you coordinate, and we'll talk a little bit about the boards and things, but you want to coordinate so you get these boxes and just do what you can do. You know, you don't have to, for instance, you know, if you're not going to get anything out of this, or you're going to get the bare minimum out of this, if you're doing, like, for instance, expert or especially lunatic, then don't do those. Just focus on, for instance, hard mode, where you can use Rachel and the exploit there to easily get the highest box, and so on and so forth, but at least donate to your guild in some way doing this. You know, this is a really nice way to keep your R-stone inventory up, and that's one of the most important parts of the game at this point, is stones in general. We all saw with the Seven Knights collab how stones can break characters especially, so with the stones you want to make sure you get those. And like I said, make sure that you kind of plan your keys out if you can. I know it's a bit of a pain in the butt for everybody to have to do that, but until they change the system, if that ever happens, we're pretty much relegated to it, unfortunately. But as you'll see here, I have 1 of 2, and mine will have refreshed in a couple of hours, at which point I'll have 2 of 2, and I'll need to make sure I get those done. Preferably, I need to use this key that I have currently. That way, if I forget, I don't have to worry about it. But as far as the stones you get, we can take a look here. So in Expert, for instance, the highest box you can attain is this 7 rank one. And you're going to see this has Starlight Stones, it has Hammers, it has Burn Stones, XP Caps, so on and so forth. So this is a really, really nice box. And like I said, if you are able to achieve the amount of damage necessary to get this box, obviously you'll get this at reset, but then you'll get an additional one if your guild is able to take down Expert mode, and so on and so forth with the rest of the difficulties, whether they're the hard mode, the easy mode, the normal mode, or the lunatic mode. Kind of the same rules apply. So it definitely benefits everyone if they coordinate and get these done. And like I said, if you are not in a position to be able to donate much to some of these higher difficulties, like here you'll see these are the max ones you can get, and these actually give you everything that the Expert one we just talked about gives you, with the addition of the Bleed Stones. So there's not a huge jump between Expert and Lunatic in most people's opinions. That's why you're going to notice most guilds are just going to stick with Expert for now, especially considering how Lunatic is very difficult for the most part for most players. So yeah, so make sure you're doing that every day. Down here you'll see usually your guild leader will tell you kind of what the requirements are and have a little message for you there. And then the other big thing to kind of talk about with that is when you talk about donations and things of that nature. So some players do not ask their guild members to donate. However, it is something that you want to do, right? So donating every single day is just a nice gesture. It donates itself to the guild fund overall that your guild will use for the guild buff every day. And if you go in here too, you're going to see under guild, in your guild missions here, under your event tab, that you have all these different little missions that you can do in order to get these coins for your exchange shop for your guild. The only one that I usually don't do, admittedly, is the level up a battle card one time. I don't do that daily, so that's one thing I do forget, but all the rest of these I usually finish. And so it's a good kind of rule of thumb to do that. You know, like I said, whether or not your guild, and you do get some for donating as well, that's why I'm talking about this now, because it is important to at least participate. And again, if you're a new player and your gold or your items are kind of, you know, they're sus, they're something that you're still trying to build up and amass, then just donate what you can afford. And that's what I always did starting out. You know, in my original guild that I was in, I would do that when I first started, and then eventually as my account grew, I was able to donate more and more. Nowadays, when we have so much availability for gold and items and things like that, especially with Inferno difficulties and the like, and some of these dungeons, it makes it a little bit easier now. You know, we have more resources available to us. So make sure that you donate. You'll see your contribution numbers there, and those skyrocket if you're donating the items, which most of the time people are just going to ask for gold. But if you can donate both, that's only going to look good, and then you can flex here and be kind of like Vegito up there at the top with his ridiculous numbers. But it all donates to helping level up your guild, which really guild rank is largely unimportant. I mean, it's one of those things where if you care, then sure, you know, do everything you possibly can, but very few people I ever talk to outside of just giving each other crap ever really care about the guild rank. So the next big topic that I want to talk about, though, is going to be something that I feel like most people kind of neglect, and I'm going to show you guys this. This is largely stuff from last night here, and I'm going to kind of jump back in time, as it were, but as you'll see here, this is the board, and this guild board is one of the most neglected parts of being in a guild, which I don't really understand why, because it is one of the most important parts, and one of the best parts of being in a guild, in my opinion, because, you know, not to sound cheesy, but it connects you to your fellow players, and it does so in a way where you kind of have the ability to, you know, coordinate with people, discuss different topics, get pointers from people. For instance, if you're a newer or a intermediate player and you see somebody that's scoring really high in some of these guild raids, hop onto the board and ask them what it is that they do in order to achieve higher scores, because you'll find that a lot of times that is going to be more beneficial to you and more rewarding than just watching a guide on YouTube. But as you'll see here, thanks to our coordinated efforts on the board, we were able to take this down right under the wire, regardless of the fact that everybody wasn't donating the max amount of keys yesterday. So we were still able to get it done, and it would not have been the case had we not have communicated the way that we did using the board. But overall, guys, to kind of summarize this video in whole, basically every guild is going to be different, and there are going to be different requirements based on whatever guild that you are in. Those will be dictated by your guild leader, so always be aware of what those requirements are if you want to stay in the guild, because they're liable to give you a warning or just entirely kick you if you're not abiding by those. So that's the first big thing, and then beyond that, do the things that you, even if you're not asked to do them because they are free. So like, for instance, your greets, checking in is a big thing. Not everybody does that, believe it or not, so make sure you do those things at minimum. And then beyond that, you can donate as well. Now, not all guilds are going to require donations, but that is extremely beneficial to do, and it's always appreciated whether they are required or not. And then even things like posting on the boards, you know, whether or not your board is quiet or not doesn't matter. You'll find that if you kind of are the first person to kind of start the ball rolling on the board and start talking, then typically you'll start getting people talking back, and then eventually you'll start a kind of new trend in your guild where people are more communicative, and that only helps everybody in the long run to do better. And then with Guild Raid, don't feel bad if you can't donate a whole lot to the Expert or the Lunatic difficulties. Do what you can. At least make the attempt, because there are rewards in there no matter whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or a veteran player that are beneficial and useful. And you'll want to make sure that you do those things, because like I said, if you don't, then you are not getting the most out of your guild that you could be, and the guild is not getting as much out of you as they could be. And at that point, that relationship is not going to be bearing the fruit that it should. So I hope that you guys found this helpful. As you'll see, we do have 4 open slots still on our guild. That is by design. We are giving those 4 slots away. If you missed that video for the giveaway announcement, it was posted on Saturday in our chat and chill, and there will be a link in the description with all the details on how to enter that. And we will be ending the entries today at the end of the day, so you have until the end of the day to send me that email. Email is in my About section here on the channel. But that's going to be the video today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like, share, and subscribe if you did. Let me know in the comment section if there are things that you like to do in your guild that I didn't cover, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.
Continue.